Well, the United Nations Human Rights Chief has renewed calls to end increasing violence in the occupied West Bank.
A terrifying wave of Israeli settler violence has engulfed the West Bank.
It's not just what's happening in the West Bank, it's everything. It's what's happening in Gaza. It's the fact that that whole part of our heart, of our soul as a nation, is being decimated.
Everything is ruled by military occupation, every aspect of our lives.
Nothing is clear. The daily lives of the Palestinians, nothing is clear.
Shock, despair, outrage. And these words don't even begin to capture my experience in the West Bank. I traveled to the occupied Palestinian territory in Israel to support our Oxfam colleagues and partners, and also to report to our supporters and donors in Canada who have been rallying for months, calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The world's gaze is fixed on Gaza, and it should be. But the West Bank, often overlooked in the evening news, is a place where violence and human rights violations are just as real and just as devastating. These are stories that need to be told.
While attention is given to the dire situation and suffering in Gaza, could you shed light on the humanitarian situation in the West Bank?
Just yesterday, my family home in the Old City was forcibly entered and is now occupied by illegal Israeli settlers. This home has been in my family for generations. This impunity that allows such acts to occur even affects me, who has the immense privilege of sitting here before you today. Most Palestinians don't have that opportunity.
Ramallah. I'm meeting Bushra Khalidi, one of my Oxfam colleagues who's been working day in and day out on this humanitarian crisis. I mean, as a Palestinian, as a humanitarian, as a human rights advocate, how have the past 7 months been? I mean, it's work, but it's also deeply personal.
Yeah, it is deeply personal. I mean, for me, it's deeply personal, not only because I'm Palestinian, but also because I'm married to my husband, who's from Gaza, and all his family's there. His parents, his sister, his nephews. We wake up every day with this deep anxiety of, are they okay? Are they alive? What's going to happen next? And every day has been worse to date. They've now safely been evacuated to Cairo. But the trauma, we'll never leave them. We'll never leave any of us. And we also still have family and colleagues and friends there.
The West Bank and Gaza are two territories that tell a story of conflict and survival. The West Bank is a rugged expanse of hills and ancient olive groves nestled between the Jordan River and Israel. Here, every city and every village carries the weight of Israeli military occupation. Gaza is a small strip of land along the Mediterranean Sea, about half the size of Toronto, hemmed in by Israel and Egypt, also under Israeli occupation. Separated by miles of Israeli territory, the West Bank and Gaza are geographically divided, yet united in their struggles and in their resistance. I'm headed to the Jordan Valley, where Israeli settlers have been illegally seizing Palestinian lands. On our drive through the West Bank, signs of segregation and oppression are everywhere. Checkpoints, barbed wires, even road signs in Arabic have been spray painted over by settlers as if trying to erase Palestinian existence on this land. So on this Palestinian land, there literally is no water left for Palestinian people. The settlers, the Israeli settlers, are kind of controlling all water access. They fenced off the only water pump and now have piping the water in the community, but the community members don't have access to it. So the water is literally flowing in pipes on their land, and they're forbidden from accessing it. Forbidden. They know that if they touch the water, the Israeli forces will be here within minutes.
We're not allowed to drill our own wells. A big part of the Oxfam program is supporting communities in rehabilitating water and wastewater infrastructure. But again, that's also stifled because settlers and the military and the Israeli army will come and either destroy infrastructure that was supported by international organizations, including Oxfam.
Later that day, I meet with a family from a Bedouin community. The week before, they were attacked during the night by settlers, with the Israeli army looking on, forcing them to flee in the night without even the time to gather their belongings. These same settlers smashed their solar panels and cut off their water supply, leaving them with nothing to return to.
The systematic policy of forcible displacement is not only used in Gaza to forcibly displace 1.8 million people across the Gaza Strip, it's also used as a systematic policy here all across the West Bank, not just on hurting communities and Bedouin communities, but also villages across the West Bank where people are continually forcibly displaced. Actually, 2023 was a record high of forcible displacement in the West Bank since the UN started recording.
Oxfam supported the family on the temporary parcel of land they are now living on by providing new water tanks and supplies like beds and blankets. But how long until the next attack? Hamza is a member of the Palestinian Heritage Trail. He knows all too well how difficult life is while under the constant threat of settler violence.
The daily life of the Palestinians is a matter of how the settlers want. If the Israeli settlers or the Israeli army or the Israeli government decide to evict any Palestinian community from the Jordan Valley, it will just be an order. And unfortunately, we have no one to protect us, so the only thing we will do is to face our destiny.
With Oxfam's support, Palestinian youth are investing in greenhouses and agricultural projects, turning barren soil into green fields, planting seeds of hope. And this isn't just agriculture. It's an expression of self-determination, a declaration that they will endure and thrive on their ancestral land.
The Palestinian community is an agricultural community in all over Palestine. And we make this strong relation with the land all the time because this is our only income, and also it is the profession that we do. And this relation between the Palestinians and their land is very strong. And that's why we're talking all the time about water. Yeah. So the resources we need to keep controlling, to develop, to work in is the land and the water. That's why we are keeping this kind of even diversity and such kind of projects as well.
As I visit these farms and greenhouses, I can't help but wonder, could these crops support fellow Palestinians who are going hungry in Gaza?
We could be sending, medical supplies, food from the West Bank, from our crops that we grow and support farmers here in the West Bank, but we can't even do that because the Israelis won't allow any aid through to Gaza from the West Bank. There's specific supply routes that we are allowed to use, dictated by the occupation. So, this separation affects everything.
Where do we go from here? It's been 7 months. I see the toll that it's taken on our team, on you. In Canada, we're standing alongside you. We want to keep pushing the Canadian government to be on the right side of history. We want to be mobilizing Canadians to give because we know the response is going to be huge, long, and extremely expensive. What are you looking towards the next days, the next weeks?
I think we need to look back and be proud of what we've done and achieved so far. And I think we can always do more, we can always do better, but I think we need to look back and say, wow, we have really achieved so much. I never lose hope. Because if I lose hope, then you lose hope. And so I have a role to play in that. And so do you. As Canadians, as our supporters, you also have a role to play in providing hope for Palestinians. People are holding on to beautiful and important principles of human rights, of justice, of liberation, of freedom, of peace. If there's no hope, then, we pack our bags and go. But I think the resilience Palestinians have shown in the last 7 months has given real inspiration and real hope to the world. And that organizing and creating those communities actually inspires you to continue and gives you the motivation and the energy to continue. And that's beautiful. I mean, that in itself is beautiful.
Bushra's right, we can't lose hope. This trip left me reeling, but deeply convinced that we will only find a path out of all this darkness if we are guided by human rights, by justice, by humanity. I traveled here to support our Oxfam colleagues and partners. I returned to Canada, eager to report to Oxfam supporters who have been rallying for months, calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, to tell them just how much their support means to Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank, and to all who are standing up for justice and human dignity. Let's keep the pressure up. Let's continue to hold Gaza in our hearts and demand an end to all of this suffering.